then Bishop of New York, told the story of two women who were standing in front of a department store several weeks before Christmas. And as they were looking into the window, they saw that there was, amidst all the displayed wares for sale, a nativity set. And there was the baby Jesus and the shepherds and the animals and the kings. And the one woman turned to the other woman in disgust and said, "Look at this, even the church is trying to horn in on Christmas." Well, the fact that we're still laughing at that comment 50 years later illustrates the challenge of trying to scrape away all the encrusted traditions around Christmas. Some good and some not so good, and to be in touch again with the core message, the core meaning of this holy and life-giving season. To really once again be touched by the joy that passes all understanding, the pulsating love of God's light and goodness that comes down to us in Jesus. To grasp again the peace for ourselves and for our world that passes all understanding. A way to begin, perhaps, getting back in touch with that core message is to take a moment to reflect on the spirit-infused prophetic imagination of Isaiah that began our scriptural readings tonight. And Isaiah uses the most primal of images, light and darkness, to convey the power and the beauty and the glory of God's promise. He says, "The people who have walked in darkness have seen a great light. And those who have dwelt in a land of darkness, on them light has shined." In our collect today, amplifying this image and drawing upon the imagery from the opening of John's Gospel, says that this night shines with the brightness of the true light. The true light. No one really knows when Jesus was born. There's some traditions that say that maybe he was born not in December, but perhaps in the spring or summer, when in the first century shepherds would have been keeping watch over their flock by night. But the church, in her wisdom, chose this time of the year, December, the winter solstice time. Not only to overlay, of course, the pagan traditions around Saturnalia, but to connect with the basic primal rhythm of nature. This time when the darkest time of the year slowly gives way to the incipient light of a new season. The rhythm of nature pointing us to the promise of God. The true light that shines into the darkness and pierces every darkness, and the darkness comprehendeth it not. Now, the church is very aware that somehow this basic imagery of light shining in the darkness, and particularly as we reflect on the star that leads the Magi to the Christ child, can be perhaps over-sentimentalized. It can become for us perhaps a glossy fairy tale and seem a little disconnected from the reality of our lives. But Isaiah again reminds us, in telling us about this true light that is shining into the darkness, that it comes upon the time when there's the sound of the tramping warriors in the background. In other words, it comes into the gritty, hard reality of a world that knows St. Luke makes the same point. He introduces the story by this roll call of the powerful from an earthly point of view in his day, beginning with the Emperor Augustus and foreshadowing the whole iron fist of Rome that hangs over the story of Jesus. God comes to us. This light shines to us. This light that is embodied in Jesus, the babe of Bethlehem, in the reality of our lives, our hurts, our dislocations, and our deepest longings. And perhaps the greatest longing for humanity, for you and me, is the longing for connection. The longing to have our lives touched and transformed by the source of all life, and all joy, and all peace. To know in our lives the transcendence of a light that never dims, and a love that never ends. And the Christmas story tells us this longing and hope is achingly possible and gloriously real. At Christmas, God removes all the barriers. Jesus comes to us as a humble child. He's born probably in a cave where sheep and goats and other animals would have been sheltered from the elements in Jesus' day. A cave has no doors. It's out in the open. And that's where God comes. In the vulnerability and tenderness of a child, utterly dependent upon Mary and Joseph, arms stretched out, hungry to be fed and to be loved. That's how God comes. God removes all the barriers, because our deepest desire is that our life and God's life might be one. And this Christmas story with angels breaking through the darkness, indeed a choral festival of angels, like a supernova from heaven pouring into earth, is a story about the possibility and the reality that our life, that earth and heaven, flesh and spirit can come together through the gift of Emmanuel, God with us. And this is real, and it's true, and it's just as real and just as urgent in our time as it was 2,000 years ago. This Christmas season, the song that's really been going through my heart, you know, all these Christmas songs that we hear, they become earworms and they get into us. But the one that really has gotten into me in a good way this year has been that we need a little Christmas. Right this very minute. Oh yes, we need a little Christmas. We need a little Christmas right now. Amen. We need a little Christmas. The world needs more of a light that shines into the darkness. The world needs more of the love that heals our hurts and takes all that's mangled and twisted and broken and aching in our world and offers us a new way, a way of life of holiness and wholeness and completeness. Oh yes, we need a little Christmas right this very minute. We need a little Christmas now. And God knows we need it. God desires, God's deepest desire is to be in relationship with us, to have us share in the creative abundance of the divine life. And God so wants this to happen that God sends an angel at Christmas to tell us the good news. Just make sure we get the message. You know, in the last couple of years, the phrase fake news has entered into our lexicon, our vocabulary as a people. And it's disturbing to me because it suggests that there's a skepticism that is alive in our world, and that skepticism can so easily curdle into cynicism, in which nothing is true, or only my truth and you have your truth. But God sends true news, good news, for all time, for all humanity, for each and every one of us, that unto us is born this day a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. And God knows we need a power greater than ourselves. We need a love that can heal and make whole all that's incomplete and longing and empty and hurting in our lives, in our community's life, in our national life, in the life of the human family. These words are true, and the hurts cut so deep. 2.5 years ago, I was in Bethlehem. And I've been in Bethlehem several times in my life. But my clearest memory of my time 2 years ago was our group of pilgrims were standing at the wall that divides Bethlehem from nearby Jerusalem. It's an ugly thing, this wall. It's about 12 to 15 feet high of concrete, and it's at least 2 feet thick, and graffiti has been painted on it, and it's an ugly thing. And our group went to this wall, and we started praying. And I was asked to lead the prayer for our group. And I found myself praying for a God who comes to break down all dividing walls.
Amen.
A God who comes to take what's divisive in our lives and in our hearts and in our communities. A God who in Jesus takes down those walls and unites the human family through the power and truth of self-giving love. For that's why Jesus came, to teach us to love, and to invite us to become part of a movement, what our presiding bishop so compellingly calls the Jesus movement, a life in which we learn and practice and exhibit to the world a love for God, a love for neighbor, in which not only do we discover healing, but the world discovers healing. It's the mission of transforming hearts and community through Jesus' love. And that's our exact mission here at St. Gregory's. But we need help. We need a Savior. And we need that Savior to be born in us. Yesterday at our Christmas concert, which was so glorious, the choir and Tim and our musicians did such an outstanding job. In this concert, I was privileged to offer a reading from Frederick Buechner, which I want to share with you again tonight. Frederick Buechner, the Christian writer, says this, prays this: Prince of Peace, be born again into our world. Wherever there is war, wherever there is pain, wherever there is loneliness, wherever there is no hope, come, thou long-expected one, with healing in thy wings. Holy child, whom the shepherds and the kings and dumb beasts adored, be born again. Wherever there is boredom, wherever there is fear of failure, wherever there is unwanted hungers, wherever temptations feel too strong to resist, wherever there is bitterness of heart, come, thou blessed one, with healing in thy wings. Savior, be born in each of us who longs for thee. And he does come. And he is born in our hearts, this true light and this true love. His Spirit makes possible a transformation in our lives and a transcendence. A transformation that allows us to live as he would have us live, loving each other, loving ourselves, loving and serving our world. And he enables a transcendence, a deep and ever-growing connection with his abundant and creative and divine love. Tonight is not an escape from reality. Tonight is a deeper dive into this God-given reality and this God-given true light and true love. Let your lives be immersed, baptized anew into this promise and its power. I want to end this reflection on the meaning of Christmas and the true light and true love that breaks into our hearts. In this year where we said goodbye to a President George Herbert Walker Bush, who was famous, as I'm sure many of you know, for writing personal notes. I thought I'd end by sharing a note from another president, Calvin Coolidge, who wrote a note on Christmas Day 91 years ago to the American people. And here's what he wrote to the American people. Christmas is not a time or a season, but a state of mind. To cherish peace and goodwill, to be plenteous in mercy, is to have the real spirit of Christmas. If we think on these things, there will be born in us a Savior, and over us will shine a star, sending its gleam of hope to the world. Calvin